Looking for a powerful home computer? This is the one. Texas Instruments home computer. With 16K memory, it can take you a long way. The home computer from Texas Instruments. This is the one.
Hello and welcome to another video from Flash Jazz Cat. And I know what you're thinking, what on earth has he got on the desk here? Well, those of you in the know will recognise this as a Texas Instruments TI-99 /4A computer. Now this one was actually sent in last September. I think it was late September or early October when I picked it up at the post office. It was before we even lived here, but I'd given the customer the new address because I actually thought we would be moved in there by then, but I was here every day. But I missed the delivery anyway. I picked it up at the post office down the road there, which would become my new local post office now. And I put the box on the shelf in the spare room. If you've watched the recent studio workshop update video, you'll have seen the shelving in the spare room. Well, there was much less in the way of shelving back then, last September. And this box went in there. I wasn't in a position to do anything with it. My tools were all over the place. I'd packed away the tools far too early. Anyway, so this computer sat there in the box. Until earlier this year, I did crack the box open to have a look to see what I was dealing with here. And it was very interesting. The computer was in pretty shabby, sort of dirty shape. But obviously I kept the owner in the loop, shot him the odd email saying, oh, well, we've moved in now. I'm just about to get set up in the studio. So anyway, cut a long story short, I finally, because if you've been following the videos, you'll know that I've been trying to get on top of this work queue that's been building up since probably about last September. And I opened the box to have a proper look at this one. So on Monday evening, I tried it, I tested it, set it up for the first time, and of course the problem that the owner had described, which was basically video corruption, was just as he'd explained it. I did try to use this TI-99 component digital cable, which comes from Cool Novelties. So this is the cable. I've took it out the bag obviously when I tried to use it, and this monitor does support component video. But unfortunately it doesn't like the signal that comes from this machine, which is a shame. So I had to connect the thing with RF. So that's the RF cable out the back, and there's also actually a PAL encoder box there which sits between the RF output and the TV itself. But incidentally, this cable comes from Cool Novelties, and Cool Novelties are the people who sell the 1088XEL SCART cable, which I recommend all the time for VBXE owners who want the DIN 13 connector. And it was the chap at Cool Novelties, when the customer bought this cable, who suggested me for the job of fixing this machine. He said, John might be able to have a look at it for you. So now I'm sorry it's about 6 months later than expected, but anyway, so I really appreciate that recommendation, I really do. I'm always appreciative of work coming this way, obviously, and the fact that it's a machine that's completely out of the ordinary is absolutely great, because the more the merrier, and obviously having the experience to work on different stuff other than Atari stuff is absolutely great. Anyway, we didn't use the component cable, we used the RF out, and I'll show you a couple of photos, I'll flash them up on the screen, of the issue that we're talking about anyway here. We had graphical corruption, odd characters on the screen. It occurred to me actually that you could probably, looking at the character codes and the sort of differential between the character code that actually appeared on the screen and the one that actually is on the screen, I thought maybe you could use that as a sort of an investigative technique to try and figure out what was wrong with it. Perhaps. But anyway, I ended up just taking the machine apart, and incidentally I found this note in the box long after I'd started working on the machine. And anyway, it's I won't dox the customer obviously, but here we are. Please advise the cost of the repair to the video output before doing any work other than investigation. And he lists what is actually included in the box. So we've got the console itself, a game cartridge, which is Munchman, which I've got in the machine now, a power supply, PAL TV encoder, video and sound to DIN cable replacement for above, so that was the cable that didn't work with this TV, unfortunately. Twin joystick, tape recorder interface cable, so that's what the other cable is. I didn't know what that was at first when I looked at it. And a speech synthesizer module. I'll quickly show you some of the rest of the stuff actually. So this is the speech synthesizer module. It's got, I don't know, it's got a door in the front, that I'm assuming you put the module inside. I'm guessing it can't just be this, because the only thing that's actually in this box, you can't really see it, is the a pass-through for the expansion port with the door on the side. So you must put something in that to make it talk to you. We've also got the, as he said, the twin joysticks here, which are quite nice joysticks actually, they're not too bad at all. The power brick that's on the floor, and this is the tape deck cable as well, which thankfully I'm not going to be using at all. But I've cleaned everything up anyway before actually presenting it to you on camera, because it was really rotten filthy. So anyway, here is the motherboard of the TI-99 4A. I've took the cartridge header off here just because it was casting a shadow over the board there. So we've seen what the problem was. Now, as ever, typically, this being an unfamiliar machine, unfortunately I didn't turn the camera on when I started to work on it. And to be quite honest, the intention, bearing in mind what the customer said in the letter, the intention wasn't to go ahead and fix it there and then. The intention was to kind of investigate the board and see what was going on. Now, as I've said, I'm totally unfamiliar with these things. The first thing I did before I took it apart was speed watch some of Noel's Retro Labs videos about the TI-99 4A. He had one in that was, I think it was just generating a high-pitched whine when he turned it on. But he did an overview, much better than I can, I would say, an overview of the board itself, with nice diagrams on the screen and stuff, as I say, much better than the stuff I do, which was absolutely invaluable. So that's in part one. I'll link to his video in the description actually, because without it I would have had no idea what I was doing here. And he alerted me in the video to some very interesting things about this machine. So if we look down here, we'll just quickly recap what Noel says. Ignore these funny looking RAM chips, the reason for them will become apparent later on. So this is the video RAM down here anyway, and I think, is it 16K? I think it is, or is it 32K? I can't remember. But I think the 4116 chips of their 16 kilobit, well, that would make sense if it was 16K. So that's the video RAM there. So obviously I was immediately suspecting that. That is the DSP, this is digital signal processor. That's the I/O chip. This is actually the world's first 16-bit consumer computer, because this is actually a 16-bit CPU. But it's a little bit hampered by the lack of resources in other areas of the board. We got some ROMs up here, by the way, and we've got some discrete logic, obviously. Now, these two chips here, these are, you would think maybe they are the system memory, because you can see they are a couple of SRAM chips, MCM 6810P, but they're actually 1 megabit chips. So together, they only give you 256 bytes of RAM. I'm like, where's the system memory on this board? Is there any? But yeah, that 256, so that's used basically as register memory by the CPU, by and large. The DSP handles the screen. That's got a heatsink on it normally. Well, it will have again when I put the thing back together. So this one handles I/O, you know, joystick, keyboard, etc, etc. But yeah, so SRAM down there, so the dynamic RAM here is for the video, and I thought straight away, because I knew for a fact this computer shipped with a version of BASIC built into it, TI BASIC. And I guessed, and it was confirmed later on when I watched one of Noel's subsequent videos after the fact, that yes indeed, TI BASIC, which will be on one of these ROM chips I guess, actually uses the video RAM to store the basic programs. But as Noel points out, he explains it quite eloquently, the CPU has to access, it doesn't have direct access to the video RAM, so it's like it's accessed through a port or something, and so it's very slow. And so it's a weird computer, so it's got this Titanic CPU in the middle of it, a 16-bit CPU, but it's completely let down by the resources in other areas of the computer, and completely impractical, slow as hell. Noel did some tests of basic programs. I do recommend you watch those videos. He did some tests of basic programs on different 8-bit platforms, which was very interesting indeed, and compared them to TI BASIC and Extended BASIC, and this one was like trailing all the time. I think the Extended BASIC was actually even slower than the one built into the computer. So lovely machine, but very interesting. But what the hell you would do with it, I don't know. Although it does come, as I say, with this this variation of Pac-Man called Munchman. So back then you just I'm going to rip the Pac-Man concept off completely, so I'm just going to call it Munchman, and I'm legally protected from that. I'm not going to get sued, no problem at all. Amazing, absolutely incredible. But yeah, so anyway, I'm getting off the beaten track. So that's a little overview of what the board's like. So this is what I'm looking at. And imagine it's Monday night and I'm looking at this board and I'm wondering why it doesn't work properly. Yeah, so the SRAM has to work for the CPU to work. It would be reasonable to assume that was the case. And the more I think about it after the event, I put sockets under the two SRAMs just in case one was bad, as was the case with the machine Noel was looking at. I don't know Noel, by the way. I've never spoken to him before, but I'll keep mentioning his name. But almost everything I know about this computer came from his videos. So I suspected the video RAM, and of course it wasn't socketed at the time, the little 4116 RAM chips. So at this point I'd done nothing basically but watch videos. So bearing in mind what the customer said, which I completely forgot at the time. So to my way of thinking, now that I've got decent equipment, I've got the desoldering gun, investigation, i.e. to try and determine what the fault is on the board, it's just as quick to take all the RAM off, put sockets under it and see what happens. I did not expect at all that would fix it. In no way did I think that would fix the machine, which is why I also, while I was socketing these, I put a couple of sockets under the SRAMs as well, just in case. And I emailed the customer after I had a look at the board, before I did anything, saying, look, I'm gonna order some new RAM, and I'll get a couple of SRAMs as well, potentially. Just order them on eBay before I do anything at all. But of course, I just thought, look, while I'm here, I'm gonna put sockets under these RAMs. It was a bit of a fight actually as well, because what they did, the swines at the factory, when they put the smaller RAM chips in, they cut the legs short, but they also bent them. They actually bent the legs of the RAM chip so that it gripped in through the vias of the board before there was any solder put on. I mean, normally, obviously, you bend legs of resistors and stuff out if you put them in yourself, just to keep them in place when you solder them in. That's common. But the damned legs of the RAM, I didn't notice until after about removing 2 or 3 chips. And I thought, I'm going to pull a trace or a via here. And so thereafter, when I was putting extra solder on the backs of the legs before using the desoldering gun, I used the end of the solder bit to bend these legs straight before, so that they would come out a little bit more easily. So it was a bit of work. It took a couple of hours to get the whole lot off, and then I popped some sockets in. But then of course the problem was that I destroyed some of the original RAM chips. Well, certainly one of them just completely disintegrated when I took it out. So I thought, what am I going to do? Am I going to buy new RAM or what? Well, it turns out, and I'll flash this up on the screen as well because it's very interesting, you can take 4164 chips or 41256 DRAMs, and you can just bend a couple of legs up and make them functionally identical to the 4116 chips. But not only that, they're more reliable as well, apparently. So you kind of future-proofed the machine. And I had a load of 41256 chips from a previous project, and they're absolutely not much use to me actually, usually. So I thought, oh, to hell with it. You know, once I had some momentum going, I thought, oh, I'll keep going and I'll put these RAM chips in. So I put these RAM chips in the board, socket these SRAMs, rig the thing up. It's getting 10 o'clock at night by this point. Rig it up, and it worked. So it was fixed. So a quick email to the customer. Oh, I had a look at your machine finally, and it's fixed. And here's a picture of it. So I'll show you it working anyway. And one of the peculiar things about this machine is the power supply sits under the front of the cartridge port where the case is. But anyway, I'll rig it up without the case just to start with, and we'll show you the thing actually booting up. So I'm going to plug in the PAL encoder at the back here. Right, so we've got power, we've got RF, I think that's it. So if I flick the switch here, unless I've forgotten something, which I probably have. Oh yeah, turn the monitor on, that always helps. Right, so we're going to connecting through RF here, but you'll actually be surprised how good the picture looks on here. So I've just got the power supply hooked up, turn it on, and there we go. That's what I was confronted with after replacing these DRAMs. Obviously we had a dead DRAM in the video memory. So there you go. So I thought, right, it's fixed. Great. So, but yeah, considering this is RF, that's actually a pretty nice encoder, because it's a little bit soft, but the detail on the screen, I expected it to be just an absolute, like looking through, you know, frosted glass. But no, it's really nice colours. So anyway, I'll pop the case back together and we'll have a look at the thing actually complete and working. And we'll have a go at this Munchman and see what the keyboard's like and that sort of thing. Right, so we've got the TI-99 reassembled, and yes, I did forget to put the thermal paste on top of the DSP chip, and then I had to take the shielding off again, do that, and then put it back together again. It was quite fiddly to put back together, but there is fortunately an excellent teardown guide here at mainbyte.com, which I found. I went hunting for this because I couldn't remember where certain things went. But yeah, you can go there if you get stuck and you can't remember what screw went where. It's very good indeed, and I just followed this basically in reverse order to put the thing back together, and everything went in the right place. It was actually this little side cover here which had me foxed when I went to when I cleaned the case in the shower. That piece fell out, and when I came to dry everything off, I thought, where the hell does this go? So this guide answered the question. So yeah, so I had no bits left over when I put the thing back together. And one thing Noel remarked on when he was looking at his TI-99 in one of his videos is how nice the keyboard is to type on, even though the layout's a bit strange and you have to press the control key, I think, in conjunction with some keys here to actually move the cursor around. But yes, it's very similar in construction to the keyboard in an Atari 800 actually. It did have a couple of variants of keyboard, the Atari 800, but this one, it has the little leaf spring design, and I think it's made by the same manufacturer actually. So anyway, I cleaned the keyboard up. I didn't completely soak it or dismantle it, but it looks a lot better than it did. It was full of dust and everything. So I think it looks very nice indeed. So we'll switch it on and see it in operation, fully assembled. So this machine has a power switch, which not all of them did back then. It's a nice thing to have, and it's just down at the bottom right here, so it's a sort of a slidey switch. You slide that like that, and then the power light comes on, and here we are, we've booted up straight away. It doesn't boot straight into BASIC or anything like that. It boots to this welcome screen, and it invites you to press a key. And so press 1 for TI BASIC, so we'll go into that. And here we are in TI BASIC, so let's try and write a little program. Now, how do you delete? I've immediately made a mistake, so how do I delete? Right, that's interesting. Let's try, so that's interesting. That's weird. I can't delete it. Oh god. Oh god, how the hell? Hang on a minute. Let's see, maybe these erase. Let's try Control, no. Shift, no. So how do you do this? So the red button, the grey button, function. Here we go. Right, so that clears the line. So let's try that again. 10. So how do I just delete the last character? Is it back? No. This is a nightmare to type on. Absolute nightmare. Oh. Right, let's try again. 10, print. Oh. There we go. I don't know why the screen's changed colour. How do you stop? Oh, that takes you out of basic altogether. Oh dear. I'd still love to know how you actually delete the last character. That is not apparent to me. Alright, so programming in basic having been a bit of a struggle, partly owing to the weird keyboard layout. I did have a quick look online actually to see if you could simply delete the last character on the line. I'm not actually sure there's a way to do that, but never mind. We'll try this Munchman, which is absolutely not at all a complete rip-off of Pac-Man. So we'll pop this in here. So this is where the cartridge is going. This is the only cartridge I've got for this machine from the owner. So we'll turn it on and see what we get here. Now, one thing that did actually freak me out a little bit when I first tested this game and tested the joystick as well, is that I couldn't move up. The up axis on the joystick did not work. So beside the fact you can't delete the last character, as far as I can tell, when you're using the keyboard, at least not in basic anyway, maybe in other applications you can. But yeah, ran into the other quirk. So if the alpha lock switch is down, it's a 2-position switch, the up axis on the keyboard just doesn't work at all. So I actually I had the board on its I had the board out of the machine on its back. I was probing signals from the joystick port back to the I/O chip. Everything looked fine. It was pulled low when I moved I think it was pin 3 on the joystick port. It pulled low when I moved it up. So was the I/O chip bad? So I was looking on eBay seeing if I could get a new I/O chip if I had to. Until I ran across an article on online, that confirmed that when you have that problem, somebody else had exactly the same problem and he solved it by leaving the alpha lock key in the off position. So another fantastic piece of design. But I don't want to come across as if I'm bashing this machine at all. I'm certainly not. I think it's absolutely delightful, and the weird quirks just seem to add to its charm somehow. So anyway, we'll press a key, and as I say, I like this. This is pretty good. That you get the when you've got the cartridge plugged in, you get the option to go straight to basic, or you get the option to go to Munchman, which is pretty good. I mean, the Atari doesn't have that. When you plug a cartridge into the Atari 8-bit, it just starts the cartridge in its normal state. I mean, obviously if you're running Sparta-DOS X and stuff like that, you have more control over it, but this is pretty good. So we'll press 2 for Munchman and press another key. Press key to begin. Now you get to see me perform very, very badly at this game. Yes, I suppose I press the fire key, do I? So there I am there, and you actually, so that's different from Pac-Man in as much as I'm dead already. It's different from Pac-Man in the sense that you leave a trail behind you. Right, here we go. Right, so I think you have to fill all the you have to fill all the available space.
I've had no complaints so far.
With the trail that you leave behind, I guess. Right, here we go. Let's try again. So let's. Did I pick that up? That's good. Right, I've done that right. Go up down here and along here. Oh, it's so stressful. Oh God. Let's pick up another one of them. That's good. Oh God. Oh, I survived that. So if you pick up those little Texas Instruments logos, it must give you an extra life. I'll pick another one of those up. Go up here. I mean, this is obviously the easy level, and I'm not doing too bad. So I've got to go down here and go up here. Fill this in. Fill that in. This is probably the yep. I'm still alive. Ah, God. The joystick isn't the most responsive thing in the world, I have to say, so I'm going to blame the ergonomic problems for my lack of performance on this game. I don't think we'll do that again. So we'll press the quit key. There we go. And there we are. So that is about as much as I can do with this machine. I'm sure there's plenty of fancy gadgetry that you can plug into it. It does have over on the left hand side here, I'll hold it up for the other camera, it does have this expansion port here behind a little trapdoor, so I'm sure you can plug all sorts of things in there, like if they exist, disc controllers and that sort of stuff. And there's another, what I presume to be a joystick port on the back there. So I'm not sure what the actual expandability potential of this machine is, but they're nice looking, and I had a look on eBay out of curiosity just to see what these things are actually worth. And they're not really that expensive. I think you could get one in reasonable condition here in the UK for about £100 to £150, I don't know, something along those lines. Certainly no more expensive, or probably a bit cheaper than an Atari 8-bit in decent condition. But there it is. It's not something I feel like I would want to use on a daily basis, but the keyboard is nice. It's got a nice colourful display, and it's just a really interesting, quirky sort of design. So I can kind of see why they're popular, and I'm sure that if you had one of these machines when you were a kid, it must be a very nostalgic experience to have one in your hands again. So I hope you enjoyed that video. It's certainly been a pleasure from my point of view to become more acquainted with this machine, and I look forward to becoming acquainted with all sorts of other platforms if I get the chance to do so. I did share a post on Facebook about this machine and the upcoming video about it, and I did mention there that I'm very, very keen to branch out and broaden my horizons, as it were, working on different vintage computers, and this represents a real departure, and it's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate having the opportunity and being given the opportunity by this machine's owner to become more acquainted with the TI-99 4A. So with that being said, I'm gonna pack this machine up now, because as far as I can tell it is 100% functional at this point, and it looks a bit nicer than it did when it turned up. All the peripherals have been cleaned and everything, so hopefully that'll be appreciated when the owner gets it back, and I hope he enjoys using it. So I want to thank in advance, as usual, everybody who watches the videos, everybody who interacts with them, leaves comments, etc., and especially the patrons, without whose support I wouldn't be able to continue to produce better content and improve the equipment in the studio and the workshop, etc. So thank you again, and as I say, I really, really do appreciate it. And with that, I will bid you farewell for the time being, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. So bye bye for now.